In this video, we'll be looking at how to simplify a rational complex number. So a complex number that is a fraction. So remember that when we have our complex numbers, we want to have a real part and an imaginary part. And if we don't have a real part and an imaginary part, and we have a fraction, then that means we're probably going to have to do something with that fraction in order to see it the way we need to see it. So let's work with an example. So in our example, I would like us to simplify 5 minus I over 2 plus 3I. Alright, so now, as you can see, there is an expression in our denominator with an I, and we don't want an expression with an I in our denominator. Instead, we want it in this form. Alright, so what do we have to do? Well, just like when we're dealing with rational numbers with radicals in the denominator, we get rid of our denominator, or I in the denominator, by multiplying by the conjugate. And I'll go over what the conjugate is, so don't worry if you don't remember. So multiply by the conjugate. And you're doing both the numerator and the denominator. All right. So the conjugate of the denominator is what we're going to be multiplying by. And the conjugate has the same terms, so it will have a 2 in it and it will have a 3i in it, but different signs. So different signs. So same terms actually, different signs. So in this case, our conjugate is 2 minus 3i. So we're going to multiply both our numerator and our denominator by the conjugate of the denominator. So we're multiplying both things by 2 minus 3i. Alright, so let's see it done on the other page. Let's clean this up so we have space to work. Okay, so we have more space here, and we also have the facts that by now you should remember that I is -1 square root. I squared is -1, I to the third is -I, and I to the fourth is 1. Again, these things are things you should know. If you don't know yet, you should memorize. Okay, alright, so now let's work with first the top, and we're going to do first outer inner last. So we get first 10 outer minus 15i inner minus 2i last plus 3i squared all over first. So now we're doing the bottom. 4 outer minus 6i inner plus 6i, and the beautiful thing happens here, take note, and last minus 9i squared. Alright, so the thing that happened that we wanted to happen, other than the sirens outside, is the fact that we have like terms here and here that cancel each other out. We don't want any i's in the bottom, and so now we don't have any i's in the bottom. Well, what about this, you ask? Well, if you recall, I squared is actually just -1. So even though we do see an I squared here, we can replace that with a -1. So let's go ahead and do that. So we have at the top 10, and now like terms, -15i minus 2i gives us -17i plus 3 times I squared is actually just -1, so I put that there, over 4 minus 9 times -1. Alright, we are getting somewhere. So here we have -3, so 10 minus 3 gives us 7 minus 17i over 4 minus -9 So that's really 4 plus 9 gives us 13. So now we are really close. Now we don't have any i's in the bottom at all anymore. So everything is over 13. I'm going to bring this up here so we can finish the question. All right, so we have 7, which is divided by 13, minus 17i, which is also divided by 13. So now we have our real part, and we have our imaginary part, and we're done. This is our answer.